This is so weird. Ah! Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell, I am not in my regular setting. I'm actually in the back of my car, parked right next to my office, because what I've realized is that it is very difficult for me to kind of go back to my home office and film a video after a long day of work, and I'm exhausted at that point. This has probably been the biggest struggle of getting a consistent schedule out for my YouTube channel. So I decided to find a solution to it and figure out a way to kind of embed it into my life, my everyday life. Oh my gosh, people are walking behind me. This is so weird. I gotta figure this out. Maybe I could do it at a conference room. There's also one of those, what are those called? Those spaces where they let you work around here that you rent it for like an hour. Oh, I should totally do that. That'll be my next video. However, here's the thing. Whenever I'm working, that's when all these inspirations come about my YouTube channel. You know, as I'm working and I run through issues, I'm like, oh, that would be a good YouTube video, or that's a good idea to discuss. And then by the time I get home, I usually write it down, but by the time I get home, I'm so tired and I'm like, can't deal. So I decided to kind of start maybe embedding it into my lifestyle, figuring out a way that works. Maybe, you know, in the back of my car, maybe sometimes I'll go and get a workspace out there. Obviously, I will still make the ones in my house, but I think I'm just going to start making these more organic. Hopefully that helps out with consistency, and hopefully it feels more of a kind of vloggy video versus something where I'm sitting down and just talking to the camera. I am on my lunch break. Mornings are always full of meetings and kind of just planning out days, weeks, and coordinating. So that's what I did this morning. Came straight to my office. I am going to then probably get some real work done. So actual, you know, writing, engineering, the kind that makes you actually feel productive and not like you've just been talking all day. This afternoon, and then I'm gonna head out and try to hit my yoga class because mental health is very important. Anyways, we'll see how this turns out. This may not see the light of day. We'll find out. So today I wanted to make a video on the project management mindset and how to have a PM mindset and how to start molding your mind into kind of more than even a project manager, more of a sense of leadership, how to become a leader, and how you can start doing that from, you know, very, very young, from your early career through your mid-career. You're always continuously learning how to be a better leader or project manager, etc. But today I want to concentrate on the technical project manager and how to start opening up your mind and start thinking in that way. For me, it started in my very, very early careers, and I would ask so many questions. It was kind of, now that I think about it, it was probably really annoying. So I'm going to go through a couple of kind of points. The first one, having a big picture mindset. Thinking high level, thinking big picture, thinking how to put the puzzle together, and not just kind of having tunnel vision and thinking of just your discipline and just the tasks that you have at hand, but also how does your portion connect to the rest of the project, and how does the rest of the project get to a final destination, or final product, final deliverable, final whatever it is. How does it get there? What are all the steps? What are all the connections? And what are all the pieces that are needed? And next point is you got to start thinking about money. You got to start thinking about more on a business level kind of mind. You got to start thinking about profitability. You got to start thinking about budgets. You got to think about, okay, rates and the world market, the economy, how is, you know, inflation and the economy impacting our rates, and how do our rates impact the project, and what is the budget in the project, and when was the project actually budgeted? Because as much as, you know, I would like to say that my priority is getting that project delivered, my priority number 2 is getting that project delivered under budget and with a profit. Okay, so project management mindset number 3 is surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you and constantly learning. It's so important to understand that there's always going to be someone smarter than you. There's always going to be a team that has way more expertise than you do. And so you as a project manager have to be a sponge and have to not be so in your ego. I think it's very easy to be a leader in the corporate world and have a very big ego. Don't get me wrong, a healthy ego can get you very far in life. And it's also important to kind of protect yourself. However, I do think that once we get into leadership, we kind of block ourselves a little bit from the constantly learning, the sponge, and we try to put this face or this mask on that we know the solutions to every problem, or that we know how to manage ourselves in certain situations for every situation, which is not true. We're constantly learning. No matter if you have, 5 years of experience versus 25 years of experience, you are always learning. And you have to be open to continuously learning as a project manager. Sometimes, obviously, as a project manager, you are not going to learn the nitty-gritty. You're not going to learn the technical, but you are going to learn from the people, the experts in that field. You'll also learn from project managers who have done this for way longer, and you'll learn new processes along the way that kind of will influence your process, even though you thought your process was the best one. So always stay open to learning. Project management mindset number 4, scope, budget, schedule. Okay, so you gotta start thinking about your scope, about your budget, and about your schedule. When you are kind of the technical person on a project, you really only worry about getting your portion of it delivered, and your portion of it delivered within the certain amount of hours that you have, and that's it. You're so close-minded and narrow-minded to your portion of the project that you don't think of the scope, the budget, and schedule as an overall high-level thing. You can kind of lose yourself in the weeds of things and not consider that potentially your portion needs to be done first because a different discipline is coming in behind you working off of what you've done. So you need to think about yourself as a piece of the puzzle and start thinking more of like, okay, what's the scope? What's the budget? What's the schedule for everyone, not just for yourself? Obviously, at the beginning, when you're a technical engineer or a technical employee, you can kind of focus on your thing as long as you know when it needs to be done, so you're not the bottleneck for other disciplines. But if you want to start thinking on a project management mindset, if you want to start kind of thinking more high level, you start asking those questions. What is the budget for the overall project? What is the schedule for the overall project? What's the full scope of this project? I know mine is to design this bridge, but what's the full scope? And potentially the full scope is really to, get something much bigger out there, but it has to be done during a certain timeline because there's funding issues that are intertwined with the timeline that it needs to get done, and you didn't know that because you didn't ask those questions. And so when you start asking those questions, you kind of start thinking of a project like an ecosystem, and that helps you start gaining that project management mindset, even though you don't really need to know it potentially, as long as you get your work done when your project manager tells you to. But if you do want to start thinking more high level, start looking into that. The next one, to start having a project management mindset, you really want to start thinking about negotiating because it comes with the turf. Essentially, you're building a contract with your client, and your client's going to want to get the most out of you as they can, right? As you're going to allow them to within a set amount of money. So to start thinking more as a project manager, you want to start those negotiating skills pretty early on. And you do them every day. I mean, if you're talking to your project manager and they're asking for you to complete something within 20 hours, but you can't do it within 40, and so then you guys negotiate and compromise on a certain amount of hours during a certain amount of timeline, that's negotiating, right? That's negotiating on a lower level. And so you got to start kind of honing in on when you are actually doing those negotiating skills, because eventually you're going to need them on a much higher level. And it's really just about kind of self-awareness of the skills that you're going to need as you start going into like project management and leadership. And negotiation is one of the bigger ones that you're going to need, and you don't realize it until you're actually there. negotiating, being in difficult situations, learning how to talk to people, to be able to come to a compromise. Those little skills are going to be very, very important. So hone in on them. Right now I'm reading a book on negotiation because I did not hone in on them, and I need to develop them as I'm going. My next point on how to have a project management mindset, I have my little notes. You got to think of yourself as you're here to help your team, right? You're here to help your team succeed. Yes, you're their leader. Yes, you are the project manager that's going to manage all the components of a project, but really your role is more of a supporting role. You're here to ensure that your project team is the right project team, has all the resources, understands the schedule, understands the scope, and if there's some expertise that's missing, you bring it to them. If there's a piece that they need, you bring them to them. If there's, you are the supporting person of your team. If your team does not succeed, then none of you succeed. You don't succeed. You really want to ensure that you're not a dictator. You are part of the team. My next point, as you start becoming a project manager, you need to learn how to delegate. This is very difficult for someone who is used to doing all the work. Maybe if you've already pulled yourself out and are trying to delegate as often as possible, it's not that hard. But for me, when I couldn't have my hands in the weeds of things and I couldn't just delegate tasks, I had to be in there understanding everything and ensuring that it was going to turn out the way that I exactly wanted. And I needed to stop thinking that way. One, when you empower people to do things and give them the power, they often surprise you and do things even better than you expect. Two, even if it doesn't turn out the exact way that you wanted it to look like, if it's still a product that can be used and constructed, it doesn't matter. Maybe you wanted the title over here, but the title ended up over here, but it serves the same purpose. So you really need to start trusting people and delegating people and being okay, empowering those people to do it. Yes, it's very hard. Once you start doing that, you're essentially trusting people to get a job done. And it is very difficult to do. But it's very important, because if you don't start delegating, you're never going to get yourself out of the weeds of things, and you're never going to have that project management mindset that you want. Start small. I started small. I started a little over communicating what I wanted. Now I just set expectations and I let it go. And honestly, 80 out of 100 times, it turns out better than I expected. There is always going to be that 20% where it isn't going to turn out right, but that's life. All right, that's it. It's getting super hot in here. I don't know if I'll be able to do this again in my car, but I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was helpful in maybe just a little bit of way. I'm going to go upstairs now and get my butt to work. Bye, everyone.